is currently 1:41 a.m. I've had maybe, I don't know, an hour of sleep, and the System 76 call is in like 10, 15 minutes. So I'm gonna go do that, and we'll cut back to when I'm less tired.
Hi there, I am slightly less tired now, so for context, I was invited to a System 76 press event for the upcoming Cosmic Desktop Alpha, and I recorded the entire call. Now the call is an hour and 40 minutes long. I'm not going to show you all the footage because, frankly, there is a lot of things that just aren't that interesting, but I will show you the fun parts. The first thing is, did you know that Cosmic was an acronym?
It stands for Computer Operating System Main Interface Components.
Who wants to take bets on it being a retrospective acronym, not one they planned from the beginning? Cosmic is providing one of the features I really want from a desktop that is completely missing from KDE and has had an open bug report since KDE 3, I believe.
We have workspaces spanning displays, meaning that when you move up a workspace, it moves up across both of your displays, or we have workspaces per display. And what you'll see a little bit later is this creates some pretty unique and effective ways of laying out windows, because with workspaces per display and tiling per display, it means that you can have a display that's tiled, a display that's not, and any combination that works best for whatever the user's workflow is.
Allowing workspaces to be individual to your monitors is the way that every tiler works. Thank you. Thank you. On the topic of other desktops, here is a bit where Carl got corrected for using the wrong terminology that certain desktop environments use.
We have manual tiling, or Maria, what's the correct term? Snapping.
Like window snapping, yeah.
Window snapping. All right, so we can grab a window, move it to a corner, and snap it into that corner. I can do it with the keyboard as well, and organize the window however I want to snap it, or any number of windows. If I want another window, I can do the same thing.
It might be hard to see what's going on in the next one, but Carl is showing off basically creating a stack of windows that you can tab between.
You can also stack windows. If I right-click on the menu, I can choose Create Stack. So if I grab this window and drop it here, it's going to stack the two of them, and I can grab it and pull it out. I can also use a shortcut, Super S, to turn off stacking.
Now don't forget, this is an alpha.
So one thing about our settings application is you'll see that it doesn't have a lot of pages filled out yet, but one reason for that is because the applets are so powerful that for most users day to day, the functionality is just in the applet. It will be this functionality will be added to settings in the next alpha. So I can choose my output device, my input device. I can connect to wireless networks. I can connect to Bluetooth devices. All of that is just built in directly from the applet.
Now Carl moves into a tiling demo. Keep in mind, this is being done over Google Meet, so the animations do look terrible, even though Carl says they look good. That's because it's a video call.
With auto tiling, I can, as I launch applications, they will automatically tile into positions on the display. With my keyboard shortcuts, I can move around. You can see that we have really nice and smooth animations in the tiling. We set up any orientation that we like. We set up stacking and move a window into a stack. We can swap a window. So let's say I want to move this window over to the left. I can swap these two windows back and forth between each other.
That last demo was with keyboard shortcuts, but that is not your only option.
Everything that I can do with my keyboard shortcuts, I can do with a mouse. So I can grab a window, can move it to any position, just like I could do with keyboard shortcuts. I can also stack a window by hovering it over another window and grab it and pull it out.
I know there's a lot of people that don't heavily use a mouse with a tiler, but I do, so this makes me very excited. Now, of course, they're gonna have a launcher, and most of what it does is what you would expect. But there's a couple of fun little things about it as well.
Something notable is like you can run a command directly from the launcher. Or you can use a calculator. I use this often, and it's really handy for just doing quick calculations.
Are you a laptop user with a discrete GPU? Well, here's a part for you.
Integrated graphics has received a considerable upgrade with Cosmic. When I start a game in Steam, it'll automatically start on integrated on the NVIDIA GPU for integrated graphics laptop. Some applications will do this also. Others won't. Their desktop files aren't set up to automatically choose the discrete GPU. So we can right-click on those in the application menu and choose to run on the NVIDIA GPU. We can also do that from the app tray, or a little less ergonomically, but we can also do it from the launcher. So if we launch Blender, you'll notice the icon next to the battery applet now has a blue dot next to it. Now, if we close this, the GPU would turn off pretty soon, and the button will go away. And that's and we're turning off the GPU entirely, so it's not consuming any energy at all.
Unlike Qt and GTK without limited waiter, there isn't going to be theming where you can just change every little thing. There is going to be recoloring, as has been extensively shown in some earlier demos, but there is also going to be some stylistic change as well.
For style, we have round, slightly round, and square. This changes quite a few different components or elements inside of the kind of visual aesthetic of Cosmic. So you'll notice these are round. The input boxes are all round, corners around the dock, as well as corners around the window. If we change to square, then everything is moved, including currently selected items. Everything changes to squares. I come to like quite a bit, even the corners around the dock. Things like toggles are now square, and grab handles are now square. We also have slightly round, which is another option. So we don't have a better we couldn't come up with a better name for slightly round, so we have round, slightly round, and square.
Along with density settings.
Yeah, so we have in the
it.
designs we had that, and it had to be cut out, I believe, for the first version.
Yeah, there is just a little bit more work that needs to happen there. So I'm not sure it will make it into the first release, but definitely on the roadmap.
I'm so excited for
layout. I'm being brutal right now with what's going to make it and what isn't, just because we've got to get to release. But we call it density settings.
It was compact, something for normal, and cozy. I think
it was spacious. I'm pretty sure.
Spacious. Okay.
Yeah.
We understand a lot of people will like the compact spacing. So.
I am looking forward to it so much. But something that's been really
I'm
nice.
terrified.
Little side note, Maria is one of their UX people, so every time they introduce one of these little toggles to modify density or styling or anything like that, it's a problem that she has to deal with. And the theming isn't just going to apply to Cosmic apps.
In experimental settings, we have an option to apply this theme to GNOME apps. So if we open something like disks, disk will match the rest of the theme that's inside of Cosmic. One of the things that we'd really like to do with Cosmic is hopefully demonstrate how well apps inside of the Linux ecosystem can fit together within our respective desktop environments. GNOME apps can look perfectly fit inside of Cosmic. Cosmic apps can look perfectly fit inside of GNOME, and the same goes for KDE. We've worked quite a bit on KDE as well, and KDE apps have a little more complexity to making them match, but we want to work with the KDE community because we'd love KDE apps to look beautiful on Cosmic and Cosmic apps to look beautiful on KDE as well. Theming in KDE, what were our blockers to do the same thing we're doing now?
I think the setting up the configuration was just overly complicated, but it's manageable. For both KDE and GNOME, the major issue is going to be automatic setting the theme, because neither of the toolkits seem to reload the theme settings from a config file override. So we may be patching GTK on Pop! OS just so it will automatically reload the theme overrides.
You can also choose your own icon theme. And eventually, we will very likely have a font selection in here as well.
One of the things I don't like about desktop environment terminals is they have a lot of buttons and a lot of things going on. Cosmic does, but it doesn't have to.
We can disable the header if we want. And using super and left click, we can drag our terminal around. Or if you're using a tiling window manager, you've probably seen it often where just have you just move your window with keyboard shortcuts, and you don't really need headers on a lot of applications.
If a desktop has minimized windows, it's gonna have a way to bring back minimized windows, but Cosmic has an optional way that I think is pretty neat.
I also just want to show you minimize windows really quick, because I think it's pretty cool. If we minimize windows, it's going to minimize into a preview at the bottom. So open up a few more items and minimize them, and we have a minimized windows that we can choose which one we want to restore when we're ready to restore them. And that applet can be placed anywhere, so it can go up in the top panel or the bottom panel, anywhere that the user feels like would be the best place for them.
Now, a lot of people have asked, why tiling?
The user experience that we designed was based on customer feedback that we started getting from people calling into tech support or reaching out to our tech support. They were all asking, how do I set up i3? Is i3 supported on POP? All of our engineers were using i3. We went out to a firmware conference at Google, and everyone was using i3 or Sway or some tiling window manager. And it was very clear to us at that point that POP out of the box was not providing what our customers and our users really needed. And that's why we built auto tiling.
What about variable refresh rate?
Variable refresh rate for the compositor is actually, I think, quite there, quite close. And it's working now, but Victoria, who works on compositor, wants to refine it further.
And especially if you follow Mastodon drama, accessibility is a really big question.
Accessibility is the biggest gap. This is a general gap as desktops are moving to Wayland. The reason for it is that applications in Wayland by nature can't see each other, and that means a screen reader can't go across and read what's on the screen to someone with impaired vision. So accessibility is the biggest question mark. Most of these we have a really good feel on what we need to get done. With accessibility, we know what we need to get done, but it's kind of new ground. So there's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of work and getting through a lot of unknowns to really tackle accessibility in Cosmic.
I think we were thinking about our own custom protocol, or maybe even running Orca with X11 and giving it special privileges.
Okay. Yeah, and next week we're going to have the alpha release on the 8th. The following week, the entire team gets together, and the first item on the agenda on Monday morning is going to be accessibility.
For all of you that like testing desktops in virtual machines, keep this in mind.
The compositor doesn't have software rendering yet, so we work on that for Alpha 2. That means testing in VMs requires hardware acceleration. If you have no boxes, just use it. It's the easiest one. It works out of the box. VirtualBox requires enabling a couple of settings.
For a long time, it was a pipe dream, but recently KDE has made progress towards HDR. What about Cosmic?
It's not working yet. It's on the roadmap. HDR, I think I'll ask Jeremy to jump in here as well. Victoria is the expert on HDR. We are participating with the rest of the ecosystem on developing HDR. So we're in the working group with GNOME and KDE and a lot of folks from Red Hat. They're all working on this together. There are a lot of components to get HDR working well in Linux. I would say that I don't think it's fully there for any platform. I don't want to. I know KDE's made up a lot of ground, but I think the best answer for you is it's on our roadmap. It's kind of a collaborative process throughout the Linux ecosystem. I don't expect it in the first release.
Victoria is planning to work on that for Alpha 2.
I would be pleasantly surprised. That would be pretty amazing.
It is on the roadmap.
Now, I was curious about the release model.
We will release annually, and we will have annual large releases with big feature drops at those releases.
What he didn't confirm here is whether or not there'll be minor releases in between. I would be very surprised if there wasn't, though. Now, something I've seen a lot of people ask is, how can you call this thing an alpha? There is clearly a lot more here and a lot more polished than what you would typically expect from an alpha.
I'd be happy to, I would like to expand on that. It's an alpha. It means two things mostly. There is not a QA review before code goes in. So it's so once we get to beta, then that means there's a full production QA process and everything slows to a crawl. So that means it's prone to breakage. And that's just part of building a product. To the reason that it is in the state that it is because it's a brand new desktop environment, and we wanted to be very careful to give a good first impression, which meant that Cosmic is much farther than you would expect a typical alpha to be.
And Carl is 100% right here. People think KDE is buggy because of KDE 4's release, which was not a release, it was a development release that they called the actual release. It was a complete mistake on their part. There was early KDE 5, which was also kind of buggy. There have been periods of KDE 5 where it was buggy. There have been issues with the KDE 6 launch, and you want to make sure things are in as good of a state as possible because you would want people to update their opinion, but a lot of people don't. I am personally curious, and I've seen a lot of other people curious about packages outside of Pop! OS.
We have probably, so each distribution is a little different, and we have the most integration, I think, with Fedora, because Fedora, we have a chat room with them where a number of our engineers are there. They're doing all the work for packaging, but they do often have issues to come back to us and recommend things that we have to do to fit in. And it's been going very smoothly. I think when we tag an actual release, they'll be able to produce packages that go into the next Fedora release. First, it has to go into Rawhide, and then it goes into the next Fedora release. And there's some other things like NixOS where it's one person who is doing work without kind of the support of all of NixOS. They don't have a special working group or anything, but they have made significant progress, and they have both Fedora and NixOS are pulling from master branches of all of our Cosmic projects. And that's similar to Arch. Arch has a volunteer contributor, but they're uploading to the AUR, which is even less official. So for Fedora, we have like a working group and everything's official, and it's going to go into Rawhide and a lot of maintainers. Then for NixOS, we have one person who has been submitting things to the actual NixOS packages repo, so it will be in NixOS, but it's just a volunteer person. And then for Arch, we have the AUR, which has a package that I think if I were to recommend any of these three distros, I would recommend Fedora first and NixOS second, because the AUR package is not quite up there, and I don't know when the process would happen to actually get it into the main Arch repos. And we also have an OpenSUSE person who's working on porting packages over to OpenSUSE. I don't know much about that process, but from what I've heard, I think once we tag a release, those 4 distributions will have something ready for users.
I've also seen questions about Cosmic and Cosmic apps outside of just Linux.
Now, Cosmic is not dependent on systemd either. That was just an easy way to demonstrate it. Most of the Cosmic projects have escape hatches for any place where systemd is used. And so we have successfully compiled most of Cosmic for BSD operating systems as well. Cosmic applications will run fine on Windows, on Mac OS as well, for the most part. There are a few missing features. And I've ported those Cosmic applications to Redux too. And I've been amazed at how smooth it's been with Fedora, because I expected SE Linux to be a bigger problem than it has been. But it seemed like it wasn't. And so we've made more rapid progress there than expected.
And if Jeremy is speaking the truth here, it sounds like shipping Cosmic on various different distros, from things like Arch to things like Debian, might actually be pretty easy in terms of dependencies.
And the compositor is relying on the Wayland protocols that have also been pretty much locked in stone. These are reliable places. We're not trying to dynamically link to C libraries. We're able to integrate in Rust with static linking almost the entire stack. And a lot of things have been developed in Rust specifically for Cosmic, like the Cosmic text library. It provides complete text rendering for the ICE toolkit, And it doesn't rely on free type. It doesn't rely on harfbuzz. It just relies on Rust projects that all compile using cargo. And that means that you don't have dependency hell. Every distribution doesn't have to check every version of every dynamically linked package and make sure that they're properly versioned for this desktop.
Theming has been a really big part of the Linux experience. Now, desktops like GNOME are going down the libadwaita route, where they don't really want to support theming going forward. Maybe some minor recoloring, but they want GNOME apps to look like GNOME apps. KDE is a lot more open in this regard, but they still at least have the Breeze theme that everything is built around. Cosmic is doing things a tad different, though.
Yeah, one other thing on distros, Cosmic also doesn't have a theme. It just happens to be Pop's theme, because that's where we test and where we work. What we hope to see, maybe not in the first release, maybe in the first release, what we hope to see is that each distribution brands Cosmic to their own unique brand. It's also extremely easy to take, you saw how it's set up a theme. It's very easy to take that theme and just create a package out of it and make that your default package for a different distribution. I think the next step that we would love to see with Cosmic, if things are really going well, then maybe distributions can start, and the open source community can start experimenting with unique user experiences and provide an experience that they feel is best for their users. So it's the idea is to kind of spread out the ability to create things and create experiences.
Do you like global menus? Well, they're not confirmed, but...
It gets requested a lot. Maria?
Yeah, it's something we thought about. No, we didn't yet make a call to go with it yet. So it's not on the roadmap, but we'll see where things move. You never know.
Essentially, an applet could be developed that you just put on the panel, but there needs to be some protocols to expose the menus inside of applications.
Yeah, there's a dbus menu protocol that KDE uses for global menus, and our applet, we'd have to have an applet developed that would do the server side of that, and we'd have to work on the client side of that. And it is something that I planned in the far future after a million other things, including HDR, are finished.
Not everyone has a top-of-the-line CPU, 128 gigs of RAM, and a 4090, so system requirements are pretty important.
Oh gosh, Jeremy, what do you think?
Well, I've run Cosmic applications on a Pentium 2 before. I have it sitting behind me right there. Do you see that old CRT monitor?
Yeah.
But that's using Redux. So we are constantly chasing memory requirements and CPU efficiency as Cosmic develops, and those are very important for us. I would say right now, the minimum that I would recommend would be 4 gigabytes of RAM and a CPU that is a 64-bit CPU, really anything from 2008 onwards, and a GPU that right now we don't have software rendering, but I think when we do, it will be fairly efficient. But you do need a GPU that supports Wayland. So for NVIDIA, that will be the 900 series onward, I believe, because the 700 series needs the 475 driver, which doesn't support Wayland very well. And for AMD, that will be almost anything from the past 10 years. So we'll have a better definition when we have a download page like we do for Pop! OS right now, but I expect the system requirements to be roughly the same as what we have posted now, or even lower.
I like running arbitrary commands and launching specific applications using a shortcut. Can I do that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, if it has a X keyboard mapping, yes.
One current quirk with creating your own custom shortcuts, you have to type in the modifier's name. So when you get there, you type the word super.
Could not figure out how to set up one of my shortcuts with super until I looked at the other ones and realized what was happening.
Yeah, we'll get there on that one, but that's one little quirk to know.
This is why it's alpha.
When I do my podcast, I like to capture my browser as an individual window. On WL Roots, you can't do that. You can do it on KDE and GNOME, but that was the reason I was using Hyperland. What about Cosmic?
This was done yesterday, right, Carl?
Yesterday.
Okay.
It was literally dropped yesterday. I don't think it's in the ISO. No, it is in the ISO. It's a little, it's pretty good, but there's some refinement still. So it's like, the 0.1 release of XGG portals. You can pick a window, you can pick a display, or everything.
Okay.
So Carl was using native screen capture during that demo, I believe. Mm-hmm. And that's something, it's working.
I use 27-inch 1080p screens. I don't need scaling, and I especially don't need fractional scaling, but a lot of people do. Luckily, that is there.
Fractional scaling, if you so you can set it to 75%, for example, and all of the Cosmic apps, they use the Wayland fractional scaling protocol. So they will pixel perfect render at that resolution with the correct size of elements. They're not going to render at 100% or 200% and then scale down using an image filter. They're going to actually render the elements, including the text, at that fractional scaling number. Scaling is monitor independent, so you can set up one monitor at 500%, another monitor at 50% if that's what you really want. Yeah, we're trying to, and this is one thing where we probably need feedback from users during the alpha. We're trying to automatically detect a good scaling level, including with fractional scaling. There are a number of displays out there that are very strange at 100% or 200%, so you need something in the middle, and we're trying to automatically detect those configurations. Yeah. There is some concern how we're going to handle X11 applications, and I think right now we're not doing that so gracefully, but we should be able to resolve that soon.
As you saw earlier, the tiling is a very free-flow tiling system, something like BSPWM, for example. But I know a lot of people out there like tiling layouts, like the master stack layout or the quarter layout, and things like that. What about that?
So not at this time. The tiling is integrated into the compositor. This is one of the few things that's part of the compositor. And we did have thoughts of how to move the tiling out of the compositor and have it be a separate library similar to how the applets are. But I think we'd have to work more on that. I don't think we have any plans for anything other than the automatic tiling we have coming from Cosmic. But we would be interested in how a third party could integrate custom window management rules.
Yeah, I haven't actually shared the full agenda with the team for our meetings in the coming week. One of those, on the second day, we have some more free-flowing things, and one of the items I wanted to cover was, would it be possible for us to enable experimental tiling contributions to do different types of layouts? So it's something we thought about and would really be interested in. I think it's important that tiling is in the compositor for a number of reasons of what I've seen, the difference when it's not and when it is. But I think I think it would be awesome, and so I'd love to explore it, and we'll talk about it as a team in a couple weeks.
Now, for my own usage, I don't really care about that lack of layouts. I personally do like the free-flowing style, but if you're coming from DWM, for example, I can see why that might feel like a downgrade. Especially with the tiling, there is a lot of people interested in being able to save a layout of windows and then reopen them in the exact same layout. What about Cosmic?
So that's been my dream ever, since 2020. Ever since we introduced auto tiling, the save layout features ghosts, like the designs. But there are a lot of technical difficulties with it, primarily because how do we handle situations when someone closed an application or removed an application, so there is a bunch of things that just are preventing us from doing that. But that's definitely something that we want to have, because that's probably right now one of the most requested features.
The way that we've seen is kind of like, I want a workspace where I do all of my 3D printing stuff. And so I want these 4 applications open, and I want to say, open my 3D printing workspace, or open this development workspace. And then those are all those applications just pop up for you. That's sort of the kind of requests that we've seen. And like Maria said, we are very interested in doing it. But there are, every time we've started to look at the UX around it, we find another hole that breaks it. And so we just, it's just a process of us really working on making it, getting it to the point where we're confident working well for users.
The main way you're going to configure Cosmic is through the GUI settings. And when we're looking at desktops like KDE, you can technically modify the text files, but it's not really intended like that. Cosmic is a bit different.
What we're exposing is powerful in the settings themselves, but what's underneath can be customized even further. You can technically have as many panels as you want in Cosmic. You can have 15 panels doing different things. If that's what your device or your user experience or whatever it is that you're building needs that, you could technically do it. It just doesn't, from the user, from what we expose as an operating system for users, this is what makes the most, what we think makes most sense for our case.
Yeah, so the settings app is a window to the larger set of settings that are available in the Cosmic config, which is a set of text files that are in the user's config directory. So in those you can find, for example, Carl talked about the panel settings. Right now we just have 2 predefined panels, and we call them the panel and the dock, but those names are meaningless and arbitrary. And you can create any number of panels by creating the correct config files for them. Coincidentally, there are settings for outputs and for output-specific things, and workspaces is probably one of those as well. So if you wanted to set up your workspaces with some being vertical, some being horizontal on different monitors, you could probably do so by editing the config files.
Now, if you have text configuration, there obviously needs to be documentation.
It's a work in progress because the format is changing as the applications and applets themselves change, and as we build out the settings application to find more and more things we need to make configurable. For example, as we were building out theming, a large number of things were hard-coded into libcosmic and into the applications, and they ended up being moved into the config files, like the padding of different elements. That was something that was a very big change that we made to move all of the predefined sizes to configurable sizes. So eventually we could have the density setting. And so I expect there to be major changes to the config system still, but we will try to be documenting the important things. And at the very least, we're going to document for distributions how they can create a configured preset. So how they can take Cosmic, configure it how they want to ship, and then make that configuration be the system default.
Cosmic has this great idea. Look at the way that a tiling window manager does configs, and then expand that system out to a full desktop environment.
But one issue that both of these systems have had is that they bundle state with configuration. So for example, the last window position is saved in the same config file in KDE as the setting for the opacity of the terminal. What we've done in Cosmic is to split out the state. So the state lives in a directory called .local/state/cosmic. And then the configuration lives in .config/cosmic. After that path, you have things like com.system76.cosmic_edit, where you have an application-specific prefix. And then after that path, you have v1, which indicates version 1 of the config scheme. And then after that, you have a set of configuration files. And they're all uniquely identified, basically bundled settings. So opacity would be in its own file that can be atomically updated. The purpose for this is so that you can create a list of files that you want to sync over to another machine, and you can sync it with any mechanism you want.
Now, some people want a bit more power, but don't want to have to go and modify configs directly.
There will probably be a Cosmic Tweaks program. I think somebody, Ed, made the application template. He has been working on a tweaks program. And I just don't think very many people will use it. You compare that to the GNOME tweaks program that you kind of have to use if you want to set certain things up, like change the fonts or change the theme. That's not really the case in Cosmic because those are built into the settings app. And yes, there are things that are not built in the settings app, but usually it's not there for a reason.
At this stage, it's unclear the extent of extensions, but there is going to be something.
For example, write your own panel. You could write your own panel, or you could write your own Cosmic Workspaces application to replace the one that we ship. And that Cosmic Workspaces application could have, for example, a Workspaces grid, which is not something we have configurable right now. But a third-party program can do that because we've designed the system such that workspaces are defined by an external process, at least partly by an external process.
And to do that and make other Cosmic applications, you probably want documentation.
Yes, so there is in-progress documentation. There is both the documentation that Michael wrote about libcosmic, and there's an app template. And the app template pre-configures a whole bunch of things like translation support, and having certain, I don't know what to call them, but each application needs to have some kind of set of subscriptions and other items that are pre-configured in that template. So there is a third-party template that I would recommend, and there is a libcosmic book that we've been developing.
As has been established, you can have individual panels for each of your monitors, but what about one panel that spans across everything?
We have a pretty strict setup of each monitor being its own independent workspace. So Windows, this is something I've argued with Carl about before. And we may come back to it depending on, we're always open to anything, both me and Carl. And mostly we're informed by Maria, whatever she thinks is right. But we've taken on this concept of workspaces being tied to monitors and Windows not spanning. And so that means panels don't span. I want to get an iFinity mode though. And so that's like if the compositor could compile different displays into a single virtual display.
Yeah.
I do want to do that mainly for gaming use, like for 3 displays turned into an ultra wide for racing or whatever.
Since I've got some weird laptops laying around, I'm definitely going to try out some stuff on those. But what about touchpad gestures?
They're there. So we have gestures for switching workspaces and opening the launcher and the app library.
Is it just workspaces right now, right? Or
it may just be workspaces.
I think it's workspaces. Yeah.
Not quite configurable at the GUI level.
Yeah, I don't from the GUI level. I don't expect the configurable gestures to make it in the first release, but I do expect it to make it in the second release.
Even though every distro has packages for KDE and GNOME applications, they all still exist on places like FlatHub and the Snap Store. What about Cosmic?
Well, I'm hoping that they are packaged properly and that this doesn't become an issue because, yes, there is some interest in having these be flat packs, but you have to understand that a number of the Cosmic applications are really core applications that need privileges that are wide spanning, like the Cosmic App Store. To place that into a sandbox would be quite difficult because it needs direct access to the packaging system.
And one last thing, let's look a bit towards the future.
Jeremy has
Image
a
viewer. I have a long list, yeah. So
I
image
don't
viewer,
understand.
there's a video player that I started working on, but we had some difficulty with keeping video frames on the GPU all the way through the process, so it wasn't finished. PDF reader, there's an in-progress one, but the rendering is quite complicated and hasn't been finished yet. Then there's one that I was thinking about earlier that now I've completely forgotten. No, we're pretty happy with Firefox and Thunderbird right now. So to render emails, you have to have an HTML5 compliant browser. So I'm not really interested in that. Now maybe we can get Firefox to render using libcosmic. I don't know.
Yeah, and see how well Cosmic's received. We do talk to folks at Mozilla. All right. Well, again, thanks everyone. We really appreciate spending today and this morning with us, or 2:30 in the morning with us. And I'm sure Brodie's ready.
3:38 a.m. right now.
Oh God!
I'm gonna take a nap after this.
something like this.